All right. All right, we're all set. So welcome to the mobile content management session. My name is Marc Dubresson. I look after product management for mobile products. I have with me Mike, who looks after the engineering team for mobile products. So we have a pretty good coverage. And I'm very excited to be here. I've been at Alfresco for 2 years. It's a young company still, but it's very forward-looking, as 2 years ago, a serious investment was made into mobile. And I'm very excited to be in a company that is getting ready for the future. And I was talking to our friend Steve here earlier. You can gauge a little bit the state of mobile by looking at the state of this room. 500 people out there looking at executing on current projects, and mobile is still a question rather than a project in most companies. So, and this is quite well reflected here, and we're used to that, but every year the number of people goes up, and I'm betting you that it's exponential and that next year we'll see a lot more of you here. Maybe I need to be able to control this. So I'm not looking at my phone. I'm going to try to control this through my phone. We're mobile, 100% here. So we're going to try, cool stuff and make sure that it works. All right. So I'm not going to do a presentation about the state of mobile enterprise. Gartner, Forrester, everyone will give you plenty of data, and I'm using some of it here. Blogs yourselves, look at home, look at work. You can judge by yourself the pace of things, but it is definitely something that is happening. So an interesting survey here from Accelerator was one of the big and upcoming players for hybrid development, that a large number of companies are already looking at deploying app stores. So it's not about looking at creating apps, but it's looking at creating app stores, distributing mobile applications within the enterprise. More importantly, is like what people do, and I like this graph that is showing the evolution of application usage for some applications by the Yankee Group from 2007, which is the year of the iPhone, let's call it that way, 2010 and 2013. The one that's quite obvious, and all of you, I bet you are certainly more than 98% doing mobile email using your smartphones. So definitely a striking evolution. But more importantly, and that's where certainly what we're going to talk a little bit more about, is Salesforce automation, customer-facing applications, basically line of business applications that are going mobile. And we're seeing a great progression on that end. So what's driving this evolution? The users. I mean, at the end of the day, tablets were not designed for business. If you remember, if you have seen it, the keynote launching iPad was done from a couch, all right? The living room, the multimedia, that's really what the tablet was meant to be when it was launched in around 2010. But it's friendly to use. It actually is easy to get content in, content out. It's easy to use anywhere, anytime. And that's obviously something that is driving the end user, us as consumers, to actually bring it into work and do things with that. Interestingly, I think executive and IT decision makers, you are a great consumer targets for those devices, your mobiles, there's disposable income, et cetera, et cetera. So that was a perfect target for the iPad. And that's really reflected in how the organization is evolving as well. Definitely room for smartphones. You can consult, you can view content. There is room for the laptop. This is where you're going to do more of your heavy work. This is where you're going to do some serious computing. And there is room for tablets, where you do a little bit of both. You do viewing, you do presenting, and you do light creation, even though I found that creating this deck was much easier on Keynote on my iPad than PowerPoint on my laptop. And so you may relate to that sometimes. And numbers are here. And so again, there's some data from Forrester here. 2017, which is almost tomorrow, 20% of the hundreds of millions of devices that are going to be purchased are going to be purchased by the enterprise. So we'll see if that's true. I mean, a lot of those numbers come through and go by, but I think a lot of things have been working in that way in mobile. And if you remember a few years back, if someone would have shown that chart, some people were, but can you believe the decline of a PC market versus the rise of a tablet market? So this is just to illustrate that something is really currently happening. Forrester predicts 1 in 8 people on Earth will use tablets by 2017. I like it, it's a big, big statement here. But by then, there will have been like 900 million, am I hearing something? There will be 900 million tablet devices out there altogether. So that's definitely a force to be reckoned with. So why have a business? And that's the part that is more interesting to me. What's the advantage of a business of deploying mobile devices? Access to content anywhere, anytime, and that's what the workforce is typically. You are at a conference today. Salespeople in your company are on the road every day. The CFO is, working with consultants and offsite. Everyone is in and out of the office. It's definitely a model that has changed, and access for remote employees as well. And there are certain things you can do with a suitcase full of paper, but certainly not, for example, get revised version of a document right on time when you're about to create a presentation or show a presentation to someone. And that's something that the business certainly will enjoy. Improve productivity. You can create, share, view content, and be more connected to your colleagues, even if you're on the road. That's definitely a big advantage here. Faster response time. The business cycles are shortened, which means that your customers, if that's the case, get answers quicker. Eventually, the bottom line is affected. Your customers are happier and they spend more money, they buy more products. So there is definitely a role to be played by the mobile devices in the application, in the enterprise economy here. What's more important, again, if we're looking at the competition is on it. If you're thinking about it, I guess it may be a say, if you're thinking about it, your competitor is already doing it. And that's something that is super important. A lot of people are thinking about how mobile can impact their business. Every company has a special secret sauce. One thing, one process are running better than others. Better salespeople, better sales pitches, better sales training, better manufacturing methods. And how do you convert this into a mobile process? How do you use the mobile device to gain or retain that advantage? And so we're going to look at that a little. So what do you do first? I mean, there's a lot of different things you can look at the company. I think what you need to do to get started is not mobilize the entire company, is look at what processes, what activities make the most sense. So you can look at sales, creating estimates, invoicing, emailing invoices right from the customer's locations. There's a lot of processes that can happen here. One quote that I have here, and I've taken it from there is a website, there's a section on the Apple website that talks about iPad and iPhone in enterprise, and they have a great collection of use cases. Obviously, they're not going to put bad stories there, but one quote that I found that was interesting is, we cut out 8 hours a week per employee in paperwork by having our guys gather data while they're performing the service on location using iPad. Document constructions, problems in the field easily by taking notes and creating detailed report that includes photos and videos. That's 101. I mean, you will see the products that we ship or showcase product, Alfresco showcase product, do stuff that are like 1 million times more complicated than that in terms of running workflows. But putting a picture in a folder that can be seen by the back office, that's 101. That's simple, and yet it's something that can save 8 hours a week to a company. I don't even have a name, but it makes sense. And so looking at the simple use case is something that can be interesting. Also, going outside of a company and looking at what customer-facing things can be do. One case I really like is an application that Zia built for the city of Denver, collecting information, reporting incidents that happens in the city. And so the citizen can have an application that feeds right into an Alfresco system to enable the city to respond to the citizens' concerns. There's a lot of simple stuff that can be done straight away, and that's there's a lot of killer applications out there. It's a matter of looking and obviously selecting them. So it's not that simple. Selecting an application and thinking of a great idea that is going to really change the way the enterprise will perform is great, but there's a lot of challenges. So we'll talk about how the applications are built, and Mike will talk to us a little bit about security. In the meantime, there are other challenges. How do I distribute these applications, these apps across the company? And what this illustrates is that the different vendors are already, working on this. If we look at Android, there's an Amazon store, there's a Samsung store, there's a Google store, there's certainly stores I don't even know about where an application can be distributed. So, for example, if you're distributing a B2C application, that will be a great way to do it. You can even email applications for Android. That's a great way to do it. Inside the company, you can use a portal. You can put your sales application up for distribution within the company, or use an existing intranet to do that. And obviously, there is MDM. MDM companies provide plenty of solutions for mobile application management, distribution, maintenance, updates. So that's working really well. iOS is more restrictive, but there's plenty of secure options to distribute. There's a store. You can go public on the store. You can go private on the store. You can use volume licensing on the stores. There's a lot of stuff that is happening that enables a lot of options. Portals, you can distribute an application art internally as well. You can create an app store for the company, talking about internal applications. So again, a lot of different methods to answer the problem. And mobile application management, MDM, also provides solutions. So in the space of 2 years, really a lot of those options have come up, and it's becoming really easy to think about an idea, to distribute it. So I mentioned security, and that's something we're definitely going to get to. Interestingly, I'm not sure you're talking about it in that way, but when I'm thinking about mobile security as a challenge, I'm like, well, we've been using laptops for 10, 20 years in enterprise. We've already, solved the mobility security challenge. The devices are just different sizes, and actually right now the lines are blurring. And MacBook Air 11-inch is certainly as big as this tablet. So what is the difference in managing security for laptops versus mobile devices? There is a platform, obviously iOS, Android, those are new platforms, but it's nothing new, and vendors like Symantec and others have been doing that for years. So it's interesting that it may not be such a big problem, but it should be a concern, definitely, and we'll talk a little bit about that. What's very interesting to me is that we have many ways to get mobile with Alfresco, and that's something we've been working on for 2 years, and we'll talk about it. It was happening before we even thought about it. Others created solutions, mobile solutions, before we even had an SDK or anything like that. But there are many ways to go mobile with Alfresco, and there is a way for everyone. So the one that is really our showcase is the native app. The native apps. You go to the Android Play Store, Google Play Store, the Samsung Store. You go to the Apple App Store, and you will find Alfresco for Android and Alfresco for iOS. And with those apps, we basically try to showcase what can be done when you connect a mobile application to Alfresco. By no means are we trying to create an app that is good for everyone. As I was saying earlier, every company has its special sauce, its competitive advantage, and we're obviously not reflecting it with these applications. I didn't think we would, but I think a lot of people are actually using the app as is, and it's a great way to get started. And what we've done in an Alfresco fashion is we made it open source. And so what happens with that is that you can take the app, or partners can take the app, or customer can take the app and can customize it and create their own. So I've got a few examples that I really like. One of them is Eurostars. They were in Barcelona talking to us about their project, and I'll read up a little bit because it's great information. They have obviously train drivers, train managers, traction inspectors on every train. Those people are mobile. They're not in the office, and those people cannot carry a laptop. This is the universal first use case for mobile devices. The driver has to carry 15 manuals. The train inspector, I think, has to carry 8 manuals. That's several kilos. We've all heard the story of American Airlines and Delta getting rid of their 40 pounds flight bag. And that's basically the story. So here they looked at the Alfresco mobile application in the store. What is obvious to me, yes, it doesn't do everything that they wanted specifically to do. There were some regulatory requirements. You need to prove that someone has received the document, read the document, understood the document. That's not a universal requirement, so obviously it's not built in. So they picked up the app, the open source version, and basically extended it. So they added things like enhanced search function, specific folder structure download, something that is not part of a native application, method to review the document, swiping, alerts, and at the time, a French version, which didn't exist when they got started. So it's a proof of concept, which is going live with Eurostar in early 2014. And we'll save one number I remember from Claire's presentation in Barcelona is saving 20,000 pounds, not weight, but UK pounds, in cost of printing and basically getting versions out to the drivers, not talking about the bad back and, well, saving trees, that's a great story. They picked up one specific application, getting documentation to the people that need it, making sure they read it, and created an app around that. Another one, and if anyone knows anyone that works at Aetna Group, let me know. Who's our customers, community customers of Alfresco. They picked up the open source version of Alfresco, modified it, and actually did something with it in terms of synchronization. We have document sync. We're working on extended sync for folders. At the time, they needed folder sync, so they took the app and they built it themselves using their own methods, and they published it back to the store. It's likely to be an internal use application for their marketing documents, but basically that's one real good case of taking the open source app and developing it for your own needs. So if anyone knows them, I've been trying to get in touch with them, and so it's just illustrating that it's what you can do with Alfresco. You can either talk to us or not, but there is a solution for you out there. Luckily, Ad Novum is one of our great partners, and they've taken the open source version and created DocPit, which is an application to simply provide documents to the board for board meetings, secure way of getting documents for board meetings for review ahead of board meetings. Something that I hear is a pretty standard use case. So that's taking the open source version. What we do is we create our applications on top of an SDK so that customers and partners can take that SDK and develop their own application. So I'll go straight to some examples. So this is Riddle. They have a very successful app in the store right now called PDF Expert. And this is PDF Expert Enterprise. And basically using the SDKs, they were able to implement a way to connect to Alfresco. So if your use case is only about viewing PDF documents and annotating them, this is an application that can work right out of the box, going right to Alfresco and using Alfresco content to annotate and review PDF. Another one, Iliad Conseil, a French-based partner. What was of interest to them is mobile collaboration. So our app, the app we ship in the store, will show you events. Now with the Android version that we've just released, we'll let you tap on a person and see some information about them, maybe even call them directly. But they wanted to push that a little bit further and look at mobile collaborations around documents on a mobile device. So they picked up the SDK, the iOS SDK, and built the application from scratch. And it's an application that's going to be available in the store, in the Apple App Store towards the end of this month. Again, it's a showcase of talent and what you can also do with the SDK. The SDK will let you get started really quickly. We packaged the hard stuff into simple methods that you can use to retrieve content and save content to the Alfresco repository. And the imagination is the limit there. Not everyone knows Objective-C. Not everyone knows Java. That's a limitation that we find in smaller organizations or in large organizations. But a lot of Alfresco customers or Alfresco partners know Java and HTML. So we're reaching out to that population of developers by providing a way to use an accelerator plugin to go into what we call a hybrid environment, use Java skills and HTML skills to create almost native applications. And in any case, that's what they'll look like to the end users. Further down the line, next year will be PhoneGap, which is a more technological hybrid platform for the more advanced HTML and Java developers. You have to do a lot of the UI work yourselves. And that's also a plugin that we're going to work and provide. I was mentioning earlier, Alfresco developers didn't wait for Alfresco to go mobile before they started. And WebScript were there since 2006. And using HTML and using all kinds of different technology, you were able to create applications before that. Another presenter in Barcelona was Queres and Estrella, manufactures beer in Spain. And they created, based on WebScript, a solution that allows managers to approve invoices on the road. You don't want a pile of invoices to stay in the office waiting for people to come in and sign them, or waiting for people to turn their laptops on. These people are on the road selling, they're in factories. And so very simple solution. But they're now extending actually to take care of booking vacations. And so they picked a use case which is a bottleneck for them, signing invoices. Did that, deployed, it works great, and then they're starting building basically an internal app that is getting quite powerful and making them more competitive. One last one, but not the least, is the fact that the mobile browser already enables access to Share. Share is touch compatible, so you can use Android, iOS, whatever mobile browser you have on whatever device, and access Share, and you're able to tap and touch the different part of the interaction. So there is maybe nothing to be done if you have a solution that works. There is access to content here that is possible. So again, a lot of ways to go, and I think that's kind of the Alfresco signatures. There is always 10 ways of doing anything in Alfresco. And it's the same thing for mobile, and very powerful out of the box tools and a very powerful toolbox to build your own applications. So I said that we were going to talk about security in more details. That's definitely one of the first questions that we get when someone starts talking mobile to us. It's, how do I secure? How do I deploy? So we're going to talk a little bit about MDM and security with Mike now.
Thank you, Mark. Everyone hear me okay? Good. It's a newfangled way of doing things. There we go. So that's way easy. So I'm Mike Hatfield. I've actually been with Alfresco nearly 7 years. I used to do a lot of the share development work, particularly document library and the underlying parts of the UI, and always had an interest in mobile. So when we got the green light to set up a mobile team, I was there, and we've grown it. And I now lead engineer on that group, and I'm very proud of the work that our engineers do. So what I wanted to talk about is talk about security of mobile, and Mark touched on it. And what we're finding is that a lot of people are encountering something we'd like to call the Dropbox problem, and it's slightly unfair on Dropbox. But as companies roll out devices to their employees, or their employees bring their own devices inside the firewall, you need to be aware of these security issues. I'm going to talk a little bit more about MDM, mobile device management, what it is, and focus in on one of the companies that we've been talking to, and then show you one of the apps that's in the store that's available today that we've built on one of those MDM solutions. So as you all know, when you get your phone out of the box, there's certain basic security choices that you have. There's the 4-digit PIN, On Android, there's a swipe pattern, there's a more complex password. More recently, of course, on these devices, you've got the fingerprint pattern, and that's been in the news quite a lot recently. They give you a very basic level of security for the whole device, which is good and prevents basic loss, but can be cracked, especially if you just go for the basic four-pin options. And what Apple have found, one of the reasons they introduced the fingerprint was that an awful lot of people just set no password at all. So you may find that some of your employees have got your confidential documents on their device and there's zero security on there whatsoever. The other form of security out there is on a per application basis. So I'll show you some examples of this a little bit later, but they give you a false sense of security. They're not true MDM. These are generally bedroom coders type characters. They've picked up Xcode, they've put an app out there, and they're builders securing documents. They really don't underneath. And I'll talk a little bit about an app called PhoneView and how you can circumvent these security apps. There's also the problem of account access loss. I mean, if you lost your phone today, how easy would it be for you to lock out access to that? I mean, Apple provides some tools. Obviously, Find My iPhone if you set that up, and there's equivalent ones for Android. But often people find the problem that in order to reset their password, there's two-factor authentication, and guess where the second factor is? It's on your phone. So you need to be able to lock out access to this content without having physical access to the device and being able to do that centrally and in a controlled manner. Sorry about the colors. It's the iOS 7 theme taken to the extreme. I downloaded a completely random selection of so-called secure content apps from the App Store. They all are billed as securing your photos, securing your documents. They're all billed as being the top level of security, and a lot of them have implemented things like the swipe password entry that Android users are used to that iOS doesn't offer natively. And on the surface, they all look very secure and very professional, and you can put all your photos in separate folders and everything else. Turns out the security is just on the UI level. There's no physical security whatsoever. There's no encryption at all to the content underneath. So taking one of these apps, and I tried it on all 14 of these, so you don't have to. There's a hacking tool that every device is supplied with, and it looks a bit like this. It's just a USB cable. And there's an app called PhoneView. And what this does is it runs on your laptop, and basically when you plug your laptop in one end and your iPhone in the other end, you can browse the iPhone's folder system, go into all those apps and pull out the folders without even running the apps. So any documents that are secured in these apps really aren't, because you can go in as if it's a USB key and just pull all those photos off. And guess what? Every single one of those apps, I could just pull the photos straight off as JPEGs, PNGs. There's no encryption whatsoever. Please don't use those apps. So the proper way of doing it is via MDM, mobile device management. And that gives you certain levels of security. So it'll sort of data control and protection. This is completely opposite to those other apps. They'll secure the content by encrypting it within those app sandboxes. So you cannot go in there with a USB cable and pull the content off. You can reduce support costs by using MDM. Your IT group can manage who has access to that content on which devices from a central location. So you can allow people to bring their own device into your enterprise, access your company's confidential documents, and you have the confidence that you can manage that access centrally. And this will, of course, reduce business risks. It stops you from having uncontrolled copies of these documents in cloud companies such as Dropbox and Box, where the connection between the user and the device and the content hasn't got your security team in it at all. So if the user is fired, if the device is lost, you can't break that chain and get that content back and secure it. It's there forever in those accounts that your company doesn't have control over. So we've been talking to a number of MDM vendors, and there's lots of them out there. And I'm going to specifically focus in on one called Good Technology, because that's one that we worked with initially to create an app. We've also been talking to Symantec, and we have someone from Symantec here, and we'll have something more to talk about them early in the new year. And there's also Citrix and Mobile Iron that you may have seen or heard about. And it's not very accurate to say they offer the same thing, but they almost offer the same thing in that it's securing, it's those goals. It's securing the content, reducing business risks for your content loss and device loss. So Good Technology. The Good Technology software stack ensures that all data is encrypted. There's no unencrypted content allowed from user creation down to the device. So if you go in there with a USB key, you can't get anything useful off there. In terms of network infrastructure, they also provision a good control server within your firewall. That makes a connection out, so you don't have users having to make connections into your firewall from these devices. The security is managed from the Good Technology cloud. They make sure that the user and the device has access to get to your servers. And they have access right now, is the key point. They also enforce best practices in terms of software. So they ensure that we don't create any temporary files, or if they do, they are extremely short-lived. Sometimes you can't avoid it because of the operating system. But we make sure, and they audit this, that if there are any temporary files, we get in there immediately and move them back into the secure storage area. They don't allow us to use the keychain. This is something that you may come across if you've used a Mac. It's where all your passwords and usernames are stored. It's secure on an iPhone right up until the point that you jailbreak it. And then you can pull that keychain off and use desktop hacking tools to get into there. So they prevent us as a company from storing details in there and make us store it in their encrypted file system instead. They also don't allow us to send data to third-party apps. And those of you with keen eyesight may notice the little asterisk on the end. You can send data to other apps that are also secured with the Good Technology software system. And you can also, as a company, decide as a policy that it's fine and you can allow content to be sent to unsecured apps. That's obviously not allowed by default, and no one would recommend switching that on because you've immediately got uncontrolled copies. The other thing that Good Technology asked us to do when we were generating the app was to work with a company called Veracode. And what they do is they take our app and the source code and they do an incredibly thorough security audit on it. I'm not sure exactly what they do, but it took at least 3 days from submission to receiving the results. And it would run literally thousands of tests. And Good have gone in and said, we're interested in these particular categories, and the app must absolutely pass these, but do warn us of any other areas. And so by passing that extremely strict audit, and that had to happen a number of times through development, we're absolutely confident that the iOS SDK and the Objective-C software layers, as well as the app itself, are all very secure and meet these stringent requirements. So the Alfresco for Good app that's in the App Store, it gives you secure connection to your Alfresco repository. It gives you secure storage on the device. And it enables central policy enforcement, so you can say exactly who is using that app, you can see who's using the app, and you can block people from using the app if they've left their iPad on an airplane in the back of a taxi whatever it happens to be, or if that employee has been terminated and they're using their own device. So I want to give you a quick demo. In order to not rely too much on Wi-Fi, and some of these processes are a bit long. These are video demos, but I'll describe what's going on throughout each of them. So the first step that must happen when you want to provision a user to use this app is that you go onto the Good Control web interface and generate a key for that user. And we'll see that happening here. So for my user, I'm going to say I want to provision a new access key. What that will do is that will allow me, as a mobile user, to use any of the good secured apps that my enterprise has paid for. So what happens next is that I receive an email with my email address and key in. And then so when I launch that app, I then type in the email address and key. That will go off to the good services and say, do you know what this key is, who it is, are they allowed to connect to your services? And you can see that process happening here. So I'll launch the app, and the first thing I have to do is enter the email address and key. This is sped up quite a lot. I'm not that good at typing on the iPad. And what will happen is a series of provisioning steps will happen, which I've shortened because they're not that interesting. And then I'll be into the app itself after my policy has told me I need to set a not particularly secure password. That's all policy control. So the other thing is I haven't had to type in where my Alfresco server is. I just need to know my username and password. That was all set remotely for me as a user. So I haven't had to worry about HTTP, HTTPS, do I need to be on the VPN? Well, no, I don't, because that was all set centrally. And you can see I'm browsing around a normal Alfresco repo, going to load up a photo. And I said, quite like this photo, I'm going to launch it put it into iPhoto so I can share it with my family and friends. Well, this app and the policy that we've set doesn't allow that. So when I tap on iPhoto, I get a message saying action not available, and the security policy only allows you to send documents to other Good Dynamics apps. Now, if iPhoto was secured by Good Dynamics software stack, I would have been allowed to do that. Because it's an Apple app, that's probably never going to happen. But there are other apps out there, so there are photo editing apps that are secured by the Good software stack. What happens is that that photo travels in encrypted form between the apps, and at no point can you get in there and access that photo in an unencrypted way. So you can't get to the photo itself outside of that ecosystem. So is it secure? So I talked about the phone view problem before, where I plugged in a USB cable and went and got the content. This content is available locally. So what I'm going to do, I've got a video of me looking at, this is what phone view looks like. And I'm going to go into the apps and find Alfresco for Good and just browse around the file system looking for that photo or something that I can pull off onto the desktop. So you can see me just generally clicking around. There's lots of encrypted file names. I looked at some of these. They're all just encrypted binary blobs. Now, I happen to know, because I know a little bit of an iPhone hacker, that when you minimize an app on iOS, it takes a screenshot. So I'm going to grab that screenshot. There might be something secure. No, there isn't, because we put up a guard across the screen. It's one of the little subtleties that we found whilst developing the app, is that if you've got sensitive data and you minimize or take a phone call, iOS very helpfully takes a JPEG screenshot of that and stores it in clear cache folder, and you can just go in and pull it off. So we prevent that. And loss management. So this is a snapshot of the web interface. This is what your IT group would see. And you can see I've got quite a lot of devices, is the first thing that you can see. One of those, the top one, was the one that I'm interested in, and I can ring them up and say, I'm sorry, IT, I left it in the back of a taxi. Can you please lock it out so no one can access my documents? So the first thing they can do is they can see the history of who has logged on to that app and has anyone tried to break in. So you can see there was compliance and app policies all enforced and delivered. And then they can go in and lock it. So they're going to send a lock signal from the good web interface. It's going to go through the good servers and over the air to my iPad. So when that app is run again, it's locked. And you cannot get in without ringing up IT and saying, give me an unlock key. And if you're Joe Hacker, you're not going to do that. At that point, the security key for the content is not available. So you can't go in and get the content. It's all, they use AES 256 encryption, which basically means it's unfeasible to go in and decrypt. So I'm going to hand back to Marc now for the very last bit. I get seasick with your transitions.
All right, well, thank you very much, Mike. And it's not a bleak picture, I think, because they are very simple solution. It's quite elegant. And so we're working now to bring more options because we were talking about that earlier. Securing mobile devices, like securing laptops, has been done for years. There's great vendors out there, so we're happy to work with Symantec. We'll work with Mobile Iron. We'll work with the people that the enterprise is using today to secure their devices. Very simply, just to summarize, basically, the needs of the workers have changed. It's more mobile. It's got devices that it's using at home, so that has created some additional needs. We know that there are some very simple apps. It's not about mobilizing the entire enterprise all at once. It's identifying the real quick wins, the killer apps. And I run through some of them. There are some very simple cases here, and typically your users already know what they want to do, and they may be using Dropbox to do it today. And so there may be a case here that can be solved more securely. The technology, and we've showed Alfresco has many options. Do you want to go native? Do you want to go hybrid? Do you want to go pure HTML? And I'm definitely not going to start the debate here, but it really depends. If you're showing one PDF document after another very simply, and there's like 3 of them, HTML will be sufficient, and you may go all platforms all at once. If you're showing 1,000 documents and you need to index them, search them, or do a complex operation on the device, or if you want to go offline and if you want to do some serious sync and get a large number of documents available, then maybe native may be the way to go. And that's a conversation that I'm happy to have with people. It's great. It can last 4 hours. It's a lot of fun. And but there is a solution for everyone. You just have to pick the right one. And the thing that I think we would advise, and that's the point of Mike's presentation, is don't do it alone because it's dangerous. And securing the solution is the first question, and for the right reason, is need to make sure that this data, being more mobile than ever, is secure. And that's where I think that we want to help by providing solution. So, what's next? Well, come and chat with us if you have questions, and we'll certainly have a few Q&A here. But also, there are 2 sessions that I want to highlight. Jean-Marie, who's in the room with our Android lead, is talking tomorrow about Android client and SDK. It's a bit more technical, but it's always interesting to see what's going on behind the scenes and how it's done. But I don't think it's showing a line of code. So even though it's technical, it's understandable by mortals. And Mike will do another session as well, and you'll talk more about hybrid as well, which is a really interesting new generation of tool that we're about to release and should really address a wide community. So the important thing is to put your content to work. Another transition for you, Mike. Do we have time for questions, or?
5 minutes.
We have 5 minutes for questions, and we're also out there and happy to talk about mobile for hours. So please do come and see us. Any questions? I knew we'd do a great job. All right, that's it. Well, thank you very much. The presentation is available, and come and talk to us. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.